So today we're talking about the death, right? We're talking about the death of made in the USA. All right. How bargains broke the American dream. How bargains broke the American dream. So by now, you've had the opportunity to read the prior article on my website, Pasha Paroh online, and you should have, if you haven't already, go check it out. But in that article, we broke down to the pathogen. The rewind was the 3K project dilemma, right? So if you got a project budget of 3K, how often, which one would you choose? Would you choose 500 goes to the producer? And it doesn't have to be music production, right? It could be anything that you're getting produced. But let's say the budget was 3,000. Which one are you? Are you the give 500 to the producer and spend 2,500 on resources, quantity over quality? Or are you the type that would be comfortable with 2,500 going to the producer and then 500 going to the resources, right? Because you hear this term on LinkedIn and all these business, TED Talks and stuff called ROAS, right? Return on ad spend. Now, you guys know we do a lot of marketing and branding, logos, all kinds of stuff. So there's a buzzword about ROAS, return on ad spend. And when you focus on that, you might look at that $3,000 budget a little differently, depending on how you're emotionally attached to the ROAS. Okay? So 500 to producer, put it in the chat. Which one would you got 3,000. Which one do you think is going to give you the best quality? 500 to the producer, 2,500 go to resources, quantity over quality. Or do you think that 2,500 going to the producer and them only having to spend 500 on the resources is a sign of expertise and or efficiency? Right? Let us know. So obsessing over the ROAS means undervaluing the skills that create the results, right? When value-based pricing is ignored, it's a race to the bottom. The pattern has been echoed in the American consumer psyche, and we're gonna dismantle that mentality tonight. Share it live. Let the people know this is what you need to be watching tonight. I don't give a fuck if NFL, NBA, I don't give a fuck if president is on. This is where they need to be. Why? Because what is the obsession with cheap? Right? What is the obsession with cheap? No, I'm pulling it up. Hold on. Right? Stats show that 73% of Americans fall in love with brands because of friendliness, right? Not elite performance, but friendliness. How does that feel to you? They crave the connection. I was a little distracted. I had to get the visual up for you. You know, I keep the eye candy bouncing around for you. All right. So 73, the stats show that 73% of Americans fall in love with brands because of friendliness, not elite performance. They crave connection, yet there's a cost anxiety. 21% feel they overspend on friends. 1 in 10 have actually ended a friendship over expenses. If that's you, put it in the chat, or you know somebody that done that, put it in the chat. So means cheapness isn't about happiness. It's about feeling less taken advantage of, you know, at least in the beginning, right? So breaking up with Made in the USA is where the bargain hunt spiral took us. Remember your parents, right? Remember the parents back in the day? They may still be doing this. I don't know. Maybe, you know, but they're like, we're not giving you what you want. We're giving you what you need. That's all we can do, right? So you started selling drugs, right? But that's authority. That's Pasha Paroh. That was America. That was the often desired friendship until reality bites. Right? What do you mean, Pasha? Well, the cost anxiety comes into play, and there's a breakup with America. Okay? Because it drove away the domestic industry, and Made in China became the new best friend, right? Satisfying bargain cravings with cheap goods. And then they kept complaining that stuff wasn't right. And now it's all the way to the point, the cycle done went to the point where China's going to get replaced by friendly AI and automation. Right? See, this is why, you know, people like us, we hurt people's feelings. We don't mean to. But the reason it happens like that is because we're not caring about feelings, because people allow their feelings to have them make decisions today that cost them everything tomorrow. And you get swept up in a tornado too, in this thing they call democracy. Because when it's more of them saying they want some bullshit, you get drug into the bullshit by living next door or being in the same community or the same state, right? So the bargain hunting became a national sport. Over 83% of consumers identified themselves as bargain shoppers. 70% have bought something simply because it was on sale. The concept of and the feeling and the chase of winning deals triggers the pleasure sensors, messes with control and people's self-esteem, right? So impulse buy surge during discounts, deals, or coupons. Like we said, consumers spend 73% more when products offer a bonus pack, right? So younger shoppers and millennials perpetually chase deals, right? Bargain hunting is a psychological, it's not what I spent, it's what I saved, right? Which is kind of dangerous. Would you agree? So the domino effect of the supply chain has unintended consequences. And America's romance with cheap is what restructured its economy. Our economy. Now, I know you don't feel, some people may not feel ownership of it, right? But it's yours. And let's stop blaming big government and big corporations for something we can take control of. Because how many of y'all saw that chick with that other dude, with that other chick, and you was like, I gotta have that one day? How come you don't put the same energy into your economy of your nation? Which one's worth more effort? Right? So America's romance with cheap caused a domino effect. China went from supplying 22%. Remember this number. They were supplying 22% of US imports at its peak. Now it dropped down to 11%, they say, in 2024. Maybe some COVID, situations lowered that number. But at a few years ago, they were up to 22%. Remember that number. We're going to come back to that because I know you're thinking about that $1 trillion I mentioned. So China still dominates in electronics. They hold 78% of US portable computers and pretty much electronics in general, right? Walmart sources 60% of its imports from China. Now, hold on, let me get on the big side. When I say this stuff here, remember that 60% that Walmart's getting from China, it could have been you and your neighbors making that shit. If your other neighbors weren't being so cheap. But you'll get where I'm going in a moment. So Walmart sources 60% of its imports from China. Now they got we ain't getting it from China, but guess what? The alternatives are Mexico, Vietnam, Taiwan, and India all rose to the challenge on the surface to intercept some of the market share. But the hidden issue is that Chinese parts and even sometimes the whole finished goods actually often get funneled through other countries, masking the true origin. Now, I don't got nothing against China personally. What I'm saying is you could be getting this bread. You could be designing these products. Your family could be eating off of what's going to China. So the irony, right? We know we love irony. Let me get you a new photo here. So the irony is every few decades, the cycle repeats. We're talking about complaints create change. Change creates complaints. Let's do it again. Complaints create change. Change creates complaints. So every few decades, right, the cycle repeats like a cultural grenade exploding in slow motion. Let's spell it out. 1970s through the 1980s, Americans griped about high prices. They demanded higher wages. Okay, that's what you feel like you want. Cool. Then 1980s through 1990s, industries flee for cheaper labor overseas. Imports jump, they rise, right? Cause and effect. 2000s, the public is now mourning the loss of jobs, and declining product quality. So now you gotta throw shit away quicker. It don't last as long, which means you coming out your pocket more often because the obsession with cheap. But let's continue. Then you get to the 2010s to 2020s, and automation and AI is now threatening and in the process of replacing everybody's job, right? That's the latest generational outcry. So come to 2025, the complaints are centered on being replaced by robots and not having any good jobs out there. There's no good jobs. They don't, right? It's the ultimate irony. Demanding cheap killed the jobs and industries that made in the USA. Watch this. Let me do it again. Cheap is what killed the jobs and industries that made in the USA matter. We got everything else matter. BLM, Black Lives Matter, this matter, that life matter, this life. Made in America mattered. What happened to that? Now, those same voices that cried in the 70s and 80s saying they were crying about the higher prices and demanded higher wages, right? Okay, then they was crying about the labor went overseas and became cheap so they can get cheaper prices. And then they were crying about the public, decline in product quality. Then they're complaining about the AI and automation. And every time they get the solution to what their outcry is, it creates another problem. Go back to what? Complaints create change. Change creates complaints. I like to add when it's not thought through properly. Because remember that friendship stuff we was talking about in the beginning? Well, that's the problem with that. When you want to be accepted and you're too worried about what somebody feels, this is the shit that happens. America's obsession with bargains wasn't just a trend. It was the shockwave that set off the global supply chain revolution. It was a friendship breakup America had with its own economy. And now, the final twist, replaced by machines programmed to be friendly because y'all wanted friendship and acceptance and feelings instead of quality, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Are you really getting what you need? Or is it just what you're being sold? You need more dollar signs. Like my song said, unstoppable. Power is in that. Song's title is unstable. But there's unstoppable power when you realize why you need more dollar signs. See, the data shows, again, U.S. goods imports from China totaled about $38.7 billion in 2024, right? Now, this is what they say. I wasn't there counting it all right? So don't, work with me here on the details. Now, that was at 11% at 2024. So if we just, for example, double it to the 22% it was, that would be about $877 billion. A little bit of a push and you got your trillion. All right. Then it breaks and or doesn't last long. Like the goods, because they're cheap. So you gave them $1 trillion. What might have lasted you 5, 10 years on quality now lasts you 4.5, 3, 2, and you gotta buy it again. You- Look, now I'm not a TV expert, but the hearsay is back in the day when the TVs used to be wood and 2,000 pounds, they were designed to be furniture. They were built to last like a lifetime. Like you got a TV, you put it somewhere, it was not going anywhere until the estate sale, right? Now they're disposable. Now you can get a TV cheaper than a cell phone. So you get it and it breaks. It doesn't last long, just like those cheap relationships, right? So you need even more dollar signs now so you can buy it again. So the question is, what's your Walmart body count, right? And we offend people, because what makes me so aggressive, and people will be like, you're dismissive, and well, when you don't fully invest in your relationship, not even with me, but with America, while preferring the cheap thrills of United States citizenship's codependency, enjoying limit liability while constantly complaining and not wanting to change. I mean, who wants to keep hearing that without you saying, let's do something about it? $1 trillion is the solution, not the end all to be all, but it's going in the right direction. We've heard groups talk about their $1 trillion of spending power, their purchasing power. Well, you gave it to China. And I'm not faulting them entirely by themselves. What I'm just doing is I'm playing with the numbers for you, for your perspective. So remember the $1 trillion you gave to China. Again, I ask you, what if you gave it to your neighbor? Like some old friends from high school that you now avoid or step over, the homeless ones in your city because you like plastic toys so much that now even your car is plastic and battery powered, disposable, like cheap relationships, right? Well, injecting $1 trillion into American small businesses rewrites the script. Here's a scenario. $1 trillion injected triggers 4.5 trillion. And this is not a guarantee. Work with the examples to get the perspective of what we're talking about here. $1 trillion injected triggers, based on calculations, $4.5 trillion in economic activity. The local multiplier, 4.5x. It would create 20 million jobs, easy, and boost US GDP by 7% all by itself. Average small business revenue would jump by $28,736. So when you think about your business, your small business that's struggling to afford its rent in some cases, struggling to pay its employees in some cases, maybe still paying back some of them PPP loans, what would you be able to do with an additional $28,736 running through your books? You see why you need to encourage your community to focus on not being cheap, because we need to invest in each other. $2.34 trillion would recirculate locally, fortifying community resilience. It would galvanize generations, right? 612,000 new small businesses could be sustained and or created if you didn't like cheap. And I'm not saying you, but this is what you need to tell the people you know is cheap, right? Okay? When you know you can make this product and they rather go shop at Walmart so they can buy one extra pair of Nikes with the savings, does that person belong on your team? Because what does your team stand for when you think about $595 million in new economic activity per community could be made if we stop sending it to China and bought from our neighbors? Yeah, it might be $2, $3, $5, $10 more to do so, because then if you started making computers tomorrow, you're not going to get the volume discount on chips. So it would be more expensive. But what we got to appreciate, if you didn't realize from all the boats lined up, couldn't get the port on COVID, if you didn't get it from the panic when the port shut down, you need to have this shit in your own community when you need it, when something goes wrong. And the only way to do that and secure that is to have it there now. $187 billion. Now I'm gonna give you this statistic because it makes sense to some people who like statistics. But I know how you feel about taxes. But it would be $187 billion in local tax revenue, supposedly funding schools, infrastructures, and services. I'll just say it like that. All right. If we look at some of the sectors, just as an example, we would be talking about things like professional services could be impacted by $763 billion. It could add over 7 million jobs. And you can go read the article for the precise, and it's not that it's, like I said, exact, but for the numbers. Retail trade could see an impact of over 760 billion as well. Over 6 million jobs could be made there, right? Food and accommodation, easily 689 billion. They could add over 7.5 million jobs. Construction, $500 billion plus. Could almost be 4.5 million jobs there. Do you know anybody in these industries that owns a business? Professional services, retail trade, food accommodation, construction, healthcare, social. What about manufacturing? You mean tell me, with all the complaints about inflation, about this cost, about that cost, about houses are going for 3 times what it used to for no reason, you mean tell me you would rather send it to China? 5 times because it's gonna break, it's gonna be cheap, you don't have to buy it again, instead of giving it to the people you see every day, the people you sit with on the train, the people you sit next to, scratching your brain on how to do what you gotta do for that paycheck. You rather know that your neighbor's hungry and feed Africa, right? While people next door to you starve? Because it's cheap, right? It's cheap to say, oh, I sent $1 to Africa, I fed 5 people. Right? Obsession with cheap. Oh, no, I can't feed them next door to me. It's expensive. Small business versus chain stores, right? The small business multiplier is 4.5. The chain store multiplier be 1.14x, supposedly. Call it hearsay if you like. Small business spending generates 3.4 trillion more economic activity. It's nearly a 4x benefit. If we put the 1 trillion back into America, if you just could get over the obsession with cheap, is how we need to talk to these people. Now, I trust you, America, to help deliver the message to those that you know are slightly beyond our frequency, because we still need to reach a critical mass, right? Once we agree on the destination, it makes it easier to overcome all the obstacles. United we stand, divided we fall. You already know this stuff. I'm not telling you nothing new. So the policy implications, right? Equity growth could look something like 20 million new jobs slashed from unemployment and boost household incomes. Entrepreneurs could thrive, over 600,000 new businesses, and rural, minority, and the underserved communities especially. Is cheap worth it? Are we ready for real value in America? America's obsession with bargains sparked offshoring, job loss, and now automation. The antidote is clear. Invest in our small businesses, circulate the wealth locally, and rebuild value from the ground up. That's why you don't like what I'm saying, because you don't understand what it means. Those people. Real prosperity comes not from cheap, but from empowering expertise, relationships, and resilience. I'm expensive when it comes to marketing and branding, you may think. And I'm okay with you feeling that way, because I want what's best for you, not what you think you want. I got what you need. Right? Oh, baby, you. Right? You say China's just a friend. Right? Come on now. Sing it. Sing it. I hear you. So Americans' obsession killed our own economy. You know, but y'all worried about cheating spouses. You cheating on everybody, being cheap. So the competitive analysis, when it comes to me, right? Go check out the article, see the details. You may feel like you have a certain budget. I'm gonna work with you in the past because I wanted to invest in the future of the nation. But you gotta have the right mindset and mentality. Because what people like me might wind up doing is hurting your feelings unintentionally. Because when you want cheap, you can't get high quality and fast with cheap. And we only have until 2030 before they try to roll out Agenda 2030, where they want to tell you you're going to own nothing and be happy, right? So if you are thinking about the situation here, the competitive analysis shows that the performances, go check the articles. I got case studies on my clients. We're growing America for a few more industries. Okay. I'm looking for a few more industries. And what I realize is that this America ain't for everybody. Some people want to be United States, and that's okay. That's okay. The United States need registration. They need to be able to check the boxes next to your name and monetize you while they sell you overseas for loans and stuff like that, right? They need you. Uncle Sam wants you. So, like I always say, I'm not opposed. We're not opposed to the United States. We're simply small businesses competing for the market share, and that's you. Okay? But we got to do it right. We got to do it right. The reason why those German cars cost a little more is because they got the thing called the Autobahn where you can go 290 miles an hour if you can get there. And guess what you don't want to do? You don't want to have a ass assembled car going 290 because you might not make it to your final destination unless you're in the movie. All right? So this is why we got to invest in each other. When I tell you that what I do on a logo might be 3,000 to 5,000, maybe you got to realize the industry standard or average for a business making less than 500K a year is actually 18 to 80 grand for a brand refresh. Pepsi paid $1.2 million for their logo. Like, you got to understand, anything less than that is an investment in you. That's how you got to look at it. I'm willing to invest in the future of America. Are you? Then we meet halfway. You need marketing and branding. You need awareness. You need campaigns. You know, Pasha militarizing branding. You can't get this nowhere else. What I do is top 1% in Facebook marketing. The value per what the industry say I should be charging is $5,000 to $15,000 per month is what they get, and I'm killing those guys. Who wants to rock with the best? Who wants to be American? The way it's supposed to work for creatives in that area, in that arena, would be that if the management budget is 5,000, then the ad spend should be separate. It should be another 5,000, maybe 10,000 sometimes. So for top 1% performing campaigns, ad spend is almost always billed separately. Roughly the ratio is 1-to-1 for the management fees. Now, the median engagement rate for Facebook posts, for y'all business owners out there, for y'all that got your Facebook brand page, for y'all that's, is actually 0.063%. The top 25% performing on Facebook is 0.19%. That's not even a whole percent, 0.19%. And the real high big ticket agencies charging $20,000 get you 1% to 2%, rarely higher. Look this up. Now, when y'all look, I know it pisses some people off sometime when I be like, I got a 34 Wonderlic score. I'm top 2% in the nation. I'm not telling you I'm smart. I'm telling you I'm trapped in a prison surrounded by the other 98%. I'm looking for the people like you. Because that 34 Wonderlic score is why I'm able to generate up to 28.1% sustained with a high score of 35%, while the people you spending $20,000 with is only getting you 1 to 2. They're getting you 1 to 2%. You handing them 20 grand, while I'm sitting here could get you 28%. But you want to be United States, and you're anti-Pasha. He building America. We don't know what that means, and we're scared, and we know this people. So let's go get him 20 grand instead of giving Pasha 10, because he might build America, and we might be good again. That's what it sounds like to wise people. You got a little fucked up strategy. That's 446x the Facebook median. The people you gave 20 grand to manage your campaign, I'm doing 14 times what they doing with less. That's how we grow America. Because once we get you to start the business or decide to grow the business, you're going to need marketing and branding. Why do you think I'm invested in this? All right. So when you look at it like that, if I'm doing 14 times what they're doing and their ticket is 20 grand, this is what my true value is. That means my true value 14 times 20,000. I'm really worth 280 because that 20 grand is a month. I'm really worth 280,000 a month to the right person. And I'm not just saying this like, oh, Pasha, I'm saying this for anybody that's really excelling and overachieving on the creative space. And you look at them, you call them talking about you need something from them, and then they tell you what the cost gonna be, and you want to be cheap. Now here's what happens. We try to work with the community, but you're trying to starve us. That you trying to starve us makes you the opposition. We trying to stay focused on America, and the people who want us to not focus on America, they know the skills and talents we got can be used and exploited to suppress you, to keep you under oppression. They gonna give us that $280,000. You put us in a bind because the creatives, if you look at it as military, you heard me say this before on the channel. Marketing and branding is the same thing as military propaganda. So marketing and branding is war. Now, 280 grand a month. These are what people like me are sacrificing just listening to you. We don't mean to hurt your feelings. Matter of fact, because we're creatives, we mostly don't operate on feelings, or else we would have been told you you're hurting ours. Every time you want a $125 logo, we got to think about the Ferrari and 10 million we could have if we go work for the people who want to destroy your ass. It's a lot of pressure. I'm a fucking nuclear bomb. And everybody that does what we do has the potential to feel and be the same thing. Which is why I started the video giving you the breakdown on the damage cheap has caused, so that you can see the power you can support if you only invested in your neighbor. Feel free to go and read the full article at my website, Pasha Paroh.online. Thank you.